Welcome to the world of science fiction and forgotten worlds. Alien Universe. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and never miss a new movies and story from this channel. The storm on planet Keller 9 had been silent for 10,000 years. No wind, no sound. Only endless ice stretching across the dead world like a frozen ocean. When human explorer Daniel Cross stepped out of his landing craft, his boots cracked the surface of that ancient ice. The sound echoed through the empty valley, sharp and lonely. Daniel looked around the white horizon and sighed. Another dead planet, he muttered. For 6 months he had been traveling alone, exploring forgotten systems at the edge of human space. Most worlds were the same: frozen rocks, abandoned ruins, or empty deserts where life had died long ago. But something about Keller 9 felt wrong. His scanner beeped softly. Daniel frowned and looked at the screen. A life signal. He froze. That can't be right. He checked the scanner again. The signal was weak, buried deep under the ice, but it was real. Something alive was down there, on a planet that had been frozen for 10,000 years. Daniel's heart began to beat faster. Most explorers would have left immediately. Strange signals on dead planets usually meant danger. But curiosity had always been Daniel's biggest weakness. He activated his drilling equipment and started cutting through the thick layer of ice. Minutes passed, then hours. Finally, the drill hit something solid. Not rock, not metal. Something smooth. Daniel knelt down and cleared away the remaining ice with his gloves. At first, he thought it was a statue, a figure trapped inside the ice. But when the frost cleared, his breath caught in his throat. It was a girl. She looked young, maybe 18 or 19, with pale blue skin that almost glowed beneath the frozen surface. Long silver hair floated around her like frozen waves. Her eyes were closed. Her expression looked peaceful, as if she had simply fallen asleep. Daniel stared in disbelief. This is impossible. His scanner confirmed it again. Life signs. Very weak. But real. She wasn't dead. She was alive. Somehow, this alien girl had survived 10,000 years locked inside solid ice. Daniel hesitated. His training screamed at him to leave her there. Unknown alien species, unknown biology, unknown danger. But when he looked at her face, something changed. She didn't look dangerous. She looked alone, forgotten, abandoned by time itself. "All right," Daniel said quietly. "Let's get you out of there." He carefully adjusted the heat tools and began melting the ice around her. Slowly, carefully, the ice cracked. Thin lines spread across the frozen surface like lightning trapped in glass. Then suddenly, crack. The ice shattered. The girl collapsed forward into Daniel's arms. Her body was cold, almost weightless. For a moment, nothing happened. Daniel held his breath. Then the girl's chest moved. A weak breath escaped her lips. Daniel's eyes widened. She's alive. She's really alive. But before he could say anything else, her eyes suddenly opened. Bright silver, ancient, and filled with pure terror. She looked directly at Daniel. Her lips trembled as she whispered something in a language he had never heard before. But the fear in her voice needed no translation. Then the ground beneath them began to shake. Daniel frowned. What was that? His scanner started screaming warnings, multiple signals, hundreds of them, moving fast beneath the ice. And suddenly, Daniel realized something terrifying. The girl had not been frozen here to protect her. She had been frozen here to hide. Daniel's scanner continued screaming in his hand. Red warning lights flashed across the small screen. Multiple movements detected. Daniel's stomach tightened. What the hell is under this ice? The alien girl was still shaking in his arms. Her silver eyes were wide, filled with panic as she looked around the frozen valley. She grabbed Daniel's suit tightly, as if letting go would mean death. The ground trembled again. This time it was stronger. Cracks slowly began spreading across the ice field around them. Daniel quickly lifted the girl into his arms and started moving toward his ship. "All right, we are leaving. Right now." A girl whispered something again in that strange language. Her voice was weak, almost broken, but the fear in it was clear. She kept looking behind them. Daniel followed her gaze. At first he saw nothing, just endless white ice. Then the surface moved. A long dark shape slid beneath the ice like a giant shadow swimming underwater. Daniel stopped walking. No, no, no. Another shadow appeared. Then another. His scanner showed the truth. Hundreds of life forms. They were circling beneath the frozen ground. And they were getting closer. The ice suddenly cracked open 20 meters away. A black creature burst through the surface with terrifying speed. It looked like something from a nightmare. Long, thin limbs, a body covered in dark crystal armor, and a head full of jagged teeth. Its glowing blue eyes locked onto Daniel instantly. The alien girl gasped in horror. She hid her face against Daniel's chest. "Yeah," Daniel whispered nervously, slowly stepping backward. "I'm guessing those things are the reason you were hiding." The creature screamed. The sound was sharp and metallic, echoing across the frozen valley. More cracks exploded across the ice. One by one, the creatures began breaking through the surface. 10 of them, 20, more were coming. Daniel's heart pounded. There was no way he could fight them all. He turned and ran. His ship was only 200 meters away, but the distance suddenly felt like miles. Behind him, the creatures chased across the ice with terrifying speed, their claws slicing through the frozen ground. Daniel pushed himself faster. Come on, come on. His ship door was just ahead. 100 meters, 50. The creatures were gaining. Suddenly, one of them leaped through the air. Daniel barely saw it coming. At the last second, he twisted his body and rolled across the ice. The creature slammed into the ground where he had been standing. Daniel quickly pulled his plasma pistol and fired. A bright blue blast hit the creature's chest. The armor cracked. The monster screamed and collapsed, twitching on the ice. But the others didn't stop. They kept coming. Daniel reached the ship ramp and rushed inside. The door slammed shut just as the first creature smashed into the hull. The ship shook violently. Daniel dropped into the pilot's seat, still holding the alien girl with one arm. "Let's get out of this frozen nightmare." He activated the engines. Outside, dozens of creatures surrounded the ship, clawing at the metal. The engines roared. To life, the ship lifted off the ground. One creature jumped and grabbed the landing gear. Daniel pushed the engines harder. The ship blasted upward through the freezing clouds. High above the planet, the creature finally lost its grip and fell back toward the icy surface below. Silence filled the cockpit. Daniel slowly exhaled. That was way too close. The alien girl was still trembling beside him. For a few seconds, she simply stared at him. Then something unexpected happened. She reached out slowly and touched his face. Her silver eyes softened with confusion, almost like she was seeing something impossible. Then she whispered one single word, a word Daniel somehow understood. Human. But the way she said it made his blood run cold, not with fear, with shock, because she didn't say it like she had just learned the word. She said it like she had been waiting 10,000 years to see one. Daniel stared at her in silence. The ship hummed quietly as it left the frozen planet behind. Outside the window, the white surface of Kellar slowly grew smaller. But Daniel's mind was not on the planet anymore. It was on the girl sitting beside him. "You know what a human is?" he asked slowly. The alien girl looked at him, her silver eyes studying his face with deep curiosity. She seemed to be searching for something, as if comparing him to a memory buried deep in her mind. For a moment, she didn't answer. Then she spoke again. "Human." Her voice was soft and uncertain, like someone trying to remember a forgotten language. Daniel leaned closer. "Yeah, that's what I am." The girl placed her hand against the glass window of the cockpit. Her fingers trembled slightly as she watched the frozen planet disappear into the darkness of space. Then she whispered, something in her own language again. This time, Daniel's translator tried to work. The small device on his suit flickered for a few seconds. Then a broken sentence came through. "Last hope." Daniel blinked. "Last hope? What do you mean?" The girl suddenly looked at him again. Her expression had changed. The fear was still there, but now something else had appeared. Urgency. She touched his arm and pointed toward the navigation screen. Then she drew a strange symbol on the glass with her finger. A circle. Inside it, several stars connected by thin lines. Daniel frowned. "A star map?" She nodded quickly. Her breathing grew faster, as if time itself was running out. The ship's computer suddenly beeped. Daniel glanced at the scanner. His face slowly turned pale. 3 ships had just appeared behind them. Unknown ships. Large ones. Very large. Daniel zoomed in on the display. The ships were long and dark, shaped like giant blades cutting through space. Their surfaces were covered in the same black crystal armor as the creatures from the planet. Daniel's stomach dropped. "Don't tell me." The alien girl saw the screen. The moment she recognized the ships, all color drained from her face. She whispered one trembling word. "No." Daniel looked back at the scanner. The ships were gaining speed. Fast. Too fast. "They followed us," he muttered. A warning alarm suddenly filled the cockpit. "Target lock detected." Daniel grabbed the controls. "All right, that's bad." Outside the window, a flash of blue light exploded in the distance. One of the enemy ships had fired. The energy beam shot past Daniel's ship, barely missing the engine. The entire cockpit shook violently. The alien girl grabbed the seat tightly. Daniel pushed the engines harder. His small exploration ship shot forward, but the massive warships behind them were still gaining. "They're not just hunting you," Daniel said quietly. "They're hunting both of us now." Another blast streaked past them. Closer this time. Daniel looked at the girl. "Okay," he said with a nervous smile. "You've been frozen for 10,000 years." He turned the ship sharply to avoid another attack. "So maybe you can explain one small thing." The alien girl looked at him. Daniel's voice dropped. "Why does an entire alien fleet wake up the moment you do?" Daniel's ship shook again as another energy blast ripped past the hull dot. The warning alarm screamed louder. Hull stress critical. Daniel clenched his teeth and pushed the controls harder, sending the small explorer ship spinning through space. The massive alien warships behind them moved like silent predators, perfectly coordinated. They were not chasing randomly. They were hunting. Daniel glanced at the alien girl. "All right? We need answers. Right now." The girl was breathing fast, her eyes fixed on the enemy ships behind them. Her hands trembled slightly, as if she already knew exactly what those ships meant. Daniel pointed at the scanner. "Those things woke up the moment you did. So tell me, who are you?" For a moment, she stayed silent. Then something strange happened. Her silver eyes slowly closed. Faint glow began to spread across her skin. Daniel frowned. What are you? Suddenly the cockpit lights flickered. Navigation screen GLITCHED. Then images appeared across the glass, not from the ship, from her. Daniel stared in shock. The girl wasn't speaking anymore. She was showing him. A memory. Space filled the cockpit window. Not the present, but something ancient. Thousands of stars burned across the darkness. Massive alien fleets filled the void, and in the center of it all, a blue planet. Earth. Daniel S. skipped. Wait. That's... The vision shifted. A war. Enormous alien. Ships were attacking the planet. Cities burned across the surface. The sky was filled with explosions. Human ships fought back desperately, but they were losing. Daniel watched in disbelief. This can't be real. The memory changed. Again, a different alien fleet arrived. Ships made of shining silver light, and standing inside one of those ships was the girl. But she looked different. Older. Stronger. Her eyes glowing like stars. Daniel's voice dropped to a whisper. You were there. The Silver Fleet attacked the invading ships. The battle was massive. Entire fleets vanished in explosions. Of light. The enemy retreated. Earth was saved, but the memory wasn't over. The Silver Fleet gathered around the girl. Thousands of ships, protecting her, guarding her. Daniel slowly began to understand. You're not a refugee. The girl opened her eyes again. The vision vanished. Silence filled the cockpit. Behind them, the black warships continued closing in. Daniel looked at her, carefully now. Really looked. The calm in her eyes, the ancient sadness, the strange power still, glowing faintly around her hands. You didn't hide on that planet? He said quietly. You were sealed there. The girl nodded slowly. Her voice was soft. They could not kill me. Daniel felt a chill run through his spine. So they froze you for 10,000 years instead. She nodded again. Then she pointed at the warships behind them. They waited. Daniel leaned back in his seat. His mind raced as the truth finally hit him. Those ships, those creatures, the monsters, under the ice. They weren't guards. They were watchers. They had been waiting. 10,000 years for one thing. For her to wake up. Daniel looked at her again. Okay, he said slowly. I think I finally understand something. Another blast shook the ship. The enemy fleet was almost within firing range. Now. Daniel took a deep breath. So let me get this straight. He pointed at the approaching warships. Those things destroyed half the galaxy. Then he pointed at her. And you're the only person who ever stopped them. The girl looked at him quietly. Then she whispered the real truth. The twist that made Daniel's blood run cold. I did not stop them. Daniel frowned. What? Her glowing silver eyes met his. Her voice was calm. But you will. Daniel stared at her as the words echoed in the cockpit. But you will. For a moment, he thought he had heard her wrong. Me? He said almost, laughing. You must be mistaken. I'm an explorer. I map dead planets and collect rocks. I'm not exactly the hero type. Behind them, the alien warships closed the distance. The scanner flashed again. Multiple weapons locked. Another blast streaked past the ship, shaking the entire hull. Daniel grabbed the controls and pushed the engines harder, but the small explorer ship was reaching its limits. We're not going to outrun them, he muttered. The girl looked at him calmly now, the fear slowly fading from her face. Instead, there was something else in her expression. Hope. You are human, she said softly. Daniel frowned. Yeah, that's kind of obvious. She shook her head. You do not understand. Her glowing silver eyes studied him carefully. 10,000 years ago, when the war began, every species in the galaxy fought the Dark Swarm. Daniel glanced at the enemy ships behind them. Let me guess, those guys? She nodded. They destroy worlds. They consume civilizations. For thousands of years, no one could stop them. Another blast hit the ship's shields. Sparks flickered across the control panel. Daniel gritted his teeth. Great. Love hearing that while they're chasing us. But the girl continued. Until we found your planet. Daniel froze. My planet? Yes. Her voice grew quieter. Humanity was young then. You had barely left your solar system. Daniel's mind struggled to follow. But when the swarm attacked Earth, something happened. Another memory flashed in Daniel's mind. The vision she had shown him earlier. Human ships fighting. Against impossible odds. Humans refusing to surrender. The girl spoke again. You were the only species that fought without fear. Daniel let out a small breath. That sounds like humans. You are reckless, she said. Unpredictable. Impossible to control. The swarm could not understand you. Daniel blinked. So, that confused them? It did more than confuse them, she said. It terrified them. Another explosion shook the ship. The enemy fleet was almost close enough to surround them. Daniel glanced at the scanner. We're about 30 seconds away from becoming space dust. The girl stood slowly. The faint silver glow around her body grew brighter. For 10,000 years, she said, they waited for me to wake up because they believed I was the one who defeated them. Daniel looked at her. You weren't? She shook her head gently. No. She stepped closer to him. I only helped humanity survive. Daniel's heart skipped. Then he understood. You mean humans were the ones who drove them away? She nodded. Yes. Daniel leaned back in his seat, staring out at the approaching alien fleet. Hundreds of ships now surrounded them. The dark swarm, a force that had destroyed civilizations for thousands of years. And somehow, humans had been the one species they feared. Daniel slowly smiled. Well, that explains why they're nervous. The girl placed her glowing hand on the ship's console. Her power spread through the controls. Every system on the ship suddenly surged with energy. The engines roared, louder than ever before. The weapons charged far beyond their normal limits. Daniel stared at the screen in shock. What did you just do? I gave your ship a small piece of my power, she said. Daniel looked back at the massive enemy fleet. For the first time since the chase began, he didn't feel afraid. Instead, something very human rose inside him. Stubborn courage, reckless determination. He grabbed the controls and turned the ship directly toward the enemy fleet. The girl looked at him in surprise. You are flying toward them. Daniel grinned. Yeah. Hundreds of enemy ships prepared to fire. Weapons glowing. Daniel pushed the engines to maximum. The small explorer ship shot forward like a bullet, straight into the heart of the alien fleet. Here's the thing about humans, Daniel said. Calmly, we've had 10,000 years to get better. The weapons on his ship fired. A massive blast of silver energy exploded through the darkness of space, tearing straight through the enemy fleet. Several warships vanished instantly. The rest scattered in panic. The dark swarm had returned after 10,000 years. But the one thing they feared most had returned too: humanity. And as Daniel's ship flew straight through the broken enemy fleet, the alien girl watched him with quiet amazement. Because after 10,000 years of waiting, the galaxy's last hope had finally awakened again.